I just wanted to give a little bit of a background about why we're here today, because it has been a year-long journey when the MK Community Foundation consulted with MK Gallery and others, and we decided to create the New City Art Prize. So we, the Community Foundation, with the gallery, had this aspiration to rebuild connections between the arts in Milton Keynes and the broader cultural landscape in the UK. And the reason for doing this is we really want to stimulate debate and interest in the arts in Milton Keynes, both for practitioners and supporters of the arts. And that's why we're here today, because we have Adrian Searle with our 4 shortlisted artists in conversations. And there's plans with Siobhán, our winner, for more activities in 2015. But also, we have today a most amazing exhibition at the gallery of all this artwork from these 4 very diverse artists. And last week, those of you that came into this room, which looked very different, I think I very spontaneously called it a boudoir. I should have said Tart's boudoir, because that's what it really did look like. But it was most interesting. And Penelope Curtis was with Adrian and others on the jury, who had been at another event last week to decide, because she's the director of the Tate, to decide the paternal winner. And she actually said the exhibition that we have here in Milton Keynes is more diverse and more enjoyable exhibition than the Turner. And I
that was supposed to be secret.
I think it's all viral, Adrian. You know, you in the media know about these things. And so I think we're very lucky, working in partnership with the gallery, to have really achieved this together. And these 4 people have just been outstanding to work with, and I congratulate them all again. And it's great that they've come back with Adrian to share with us what their thoughts are on art.
Thank you very much.
One of the great differences between this and the Turner Prize, of course, is there aren't any paparazzi outside, as far as someone is there from Bletchley Courier, I think, hiding around the corner. But it would be very unusual to get all 4 artists for the Turner Prize to actually sit on to share sofas and talk with one of the jurors. I mean, at least 3 of the people would probably want to kill the jury member. And so there is a collegial sense, I think, about this exhibition, which, as has been pointed out, covers different generations, different art practices, completely diverse practices, really. And part of the problem of judging it, not to reveal the secrets of the jury room, because we didn't have a sort of Nick Sirota there to sort of swivel his eyes and do something weird, and everyone just goes yes at the end. Was that initially we were selecting the art that we found not necessarily, you know, there was fantastic diversity of work and quality of work when we were selecting. But it turned out that the artists we liked covered this enormous range, and we were concerned really about how that was going to work as an exhibition, because there's a difference between a prize exhibition and just another group exhibition which has some kind of a theme. Well, there may be themes there that we can tease out from this extremely in-your-face, quietist, mesmerizing, high-tech, no-tech show that does say something about what it's like to be alive in 2014. So I hope we might delve into that a little bit. And I think as we've got everybody here, who I would like to speak to one another and maybe have questions for each other. I know they've been getting on pretty well. They're all still speaking so far as I know. Is to ask them to say a little bit about what they've presented to us. And I was a bit nervous when I heard that Jimmy was going to be showing something completely new, for example. I thought, ooh, is he going to go off-piste? and take himself and us somewhere he's never been before. So that was a kind of a risk, but it's the sort of risk that artists often like to take. And I'm interested in wanted to ask you first, because I know you've got a flatulence problem at the moment. And you may not be here all evening.
Can you smell it already?
A little bit about. I would like each of you really to say a little bit about.
No, I really don't. I really don't. I don't.
No, he doesn't. Really.
I just said that. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, but I'm not.
No. Oh, you're such a tease.
Yeah, I'm so teasing.
And one of the things I found really great about the work, which I just looked at part of it again, was to do how it played with the manners of the art world, and all the sort of pieties that people talk about.
It was a new piece of work. I didn't want to, what would it be in an award? And I had a few months to. I worked very quickly, so I decided to make this piece of work that I've wanted to make for a long time. But often I have these ideas, and I've got more that I want to do at some point in my life. If I carry on, kind of, if I could look after myself at some point, I'll make this stuff. So this one, this was I wanted to make a piece of work which was used as its point of departure. I love that word as well. This word sort of pops up all over the place.
Which word was that?
Point of departure.
Oh, right.
A Q&A between someone that likes to think of himself as an artist and somebody asking the questions, So I started work, and then I finished, and I looked at it, and I spent a few weeks editing, and then I was happy with it, and it was so much fun making this. I don't know, you can probably tell if you go and see it. It's quite kind of, it's myself with a mask on, and my good friend Dan Zor, who's from Stoke, and he kind of comes down every now and again, and we make these films together, I suppose. But he just does everything I tell him. He'll do like everything. Dan will just do it, and so I end up with all this stuff, and I have to somehow piece it together. But it was the first time I scripted, a film before. In the past, I bring all this kind of footage together, and I just start working on it in the same way, I suppose, as a painter would work on his or her canvas, or so yeah. But we I don't really know where to start with it. I mean, it's just 30 minutes long. It's in there. Hopefully, everybody's seen it. If you haven't, you've got to go and see it, because it helps quite a lot. Yeah, I mean,
generally
people think it's strange, and a good friend of mine, Paul, who was the first guy that saw my work, came to see it here, and we hadn't really talked beforehand so much about what I'd done. And afterwards, he just said one word to me. He just said it was weird, and I didn't ask him what he meant until a couple of days ago. And he said, "I don't know, Jim. It made me feel really sad." And that sort of, it upset me a little bit, because I had so much fun making it, I'm not going to start crying, but I could quite easily, but yeah. It's a new piece of work. Yeah, of course it was a risk, but you do what you've got to do sometimes.
And for all its absurd slapstick sort of moments, there are these great these great little intervals where the screen sort of dies and carries the ghost of the last image that was there, and it's very abstract, and the singing is actually quite beautiful often. So you're kind of repulsing us and sucking us in.
Well, this
massaging our brains.
I think it's something like that. I mean, you end up watching, when you make a video, you probably know, you end up watching this thing like over and over and over again. And it's really, really difficult to have distance from it after a while, because you're in it, with a video work, I think. So I kind of gave it a week, and then went back and watched it again, and it just felt like it was finished, and I had to do something else. So I started working on something else, and just kind of sent it to these guys, and just like fingers crossed all the screens work, and I haven't seen it once since, but I've got it. I know exactly. Yeah, of course you do.
It's there. It's up.
Yeah,
it's
running. There, and it's
yeah.
But those moments of I don't usually like using words so much, so I had to kind of cut quite a lot out, believe it or not.
You prefer the sort of thigh slapping and the.
Well, just that I could just make a film that just goes on for Jonas Mekas is one of my favourite filmmakers. You know, I discovered him about 10 years ago, I think, and went onto his website, and he's got these diary films, and just watched all of it. You know, there's so much stuff to, and it's just so nice. You know, just for some reason it kind of hits a nerve, I think, with everybody. I don't know if everybody's seen Jonas Mekas' work.
Yeah, Jonas Mekas did a big Serpentine show about
yeah,
2 years ago. And just the honesty of his work.
Well, that's it. You know, I don't know where else you can, where else to start, really. I think. So I'm still there. I'm still right at the beginning. I'm still kind of asking questions about what it means to, why you want to make work in the first place. Anyway, I don't know. I kind of just ended up doing it.
Is that a question that ever goes away?
I don't know.
Why you want to make stuff?
I don't think it ever goes away, no. It can't possibly go away because you can't ever achieve any kind of total satisfaction with what you do. It always raises more questions than it answers.
And I think also, yeah, if the questions were answered, you would stop working. So it's important that the problems are where the juicy stuff is.
And when you say you leave it for a week, I mean, that seems to me like a 500th of a second, actually, a week. It's like an exposure of a photograph.
You miss it, you miss it, you do miss it, you miss it a bit.
I mean, I'd say 5 years is quite a good time to start thinking, was what I did 5 years ago any good? Because before that, you've invested so much in it that, as you say, you can't get any distance from it.
But it's like when you when they're talking about music, people talk about the best of the first album being, you know, if you make if you put it all into your first album, then the second album's, a lot of the time it fails miserably, and then it's really hard to make a third, you know. And
yeah, except that the second albums do have a habit of coming back if they're any good, that they don't get appreciated at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can. I love film, and I've made a film once, and it was precisely because I was told a story that just would not go away. It was sort of indelibly marked in my memory. And I decided to try and deal with this indelible thing in my memory for the Venice Biennale.
That was when you represented Ireland.
Yeah. And it was basically, it was my ex-partner, one of the guys that he worked with. He was really into bear hunting, and he used to go to Hampstead Heath and try and find these big hairy...
There's a few bears on hand.
Yeah. These big hairy bears. And I said, so what happened when he went there? And he said, well, it was really weird. He said there was a thicket of bushes, and he could see a red flashing light. And he said he was just drawn to it like a moth. He just really wanted to see what this light was. And when he got there, there was a young man completely naked, lying face down on a tree log, and he had a bicycle light stuck between his buttocks, and it was on red flash mode.
As you do, yes.
Yeah, and I just couldn't get this thought out of my mind. And it wasn't because it was an erotic thing. For me, it was an act of total desperation. You know, this need to connect with another human of sorts, or a bear, or whatever he was hoping to find. And so, I don't know. The only way that I couldn't make a sculpture about this because it would have been crap. And the only way I could actually deal with this was to make a film. And it was just a fantastic process, so I think making film's great. I'd love to do it again.
Yeah, because you work with an 11-year-old on the film here. They always say never work with children or animals, whether they're bears or any other species you like. But how was that?
It was great actually. It was kind of a fun. It was definitely really fun. It was one of the funnest pieces I've made. I felt very free making it. I don't know. I think for various reasons where I am in my personal life, professional life. The film is. I mean, I say a bit about it to say more about that. But so it's kind of like lately my films have been quite a lot about their own method, I guess. Sometimes explicitly, but not always. The way that I make films is very process-based, and it draws a lot from experimental music, in particular kind of 1950s kind of experimental composition and ideas to do with chants and aleatory procedures and things that I can't control. So I tried to kind of translate that into filmmaking. So I sort of set up
sort of compositional parameters, and the rest I let unfold, and I don't really have any control over it. So the 11-year-old is one of those parameters.
Who's playing a computer game?
Who's playing a computer game, and yeah, so the film kind of came out of the last film that I made, which what does one thing always follows another, and the last film that I made played with some of these kind of was looking at like collective production, which was another big kind of trope from avant-garde music in the 50s and 60s, and it went kind of horribly wrong.
Was that the Cornelius Cardew
yeah, the
moment?
Tiger's Mind. I ended up killing. It sort of was a detective thriller, and I killed all my collaborators. So watching the rough cut was awkward. Let's put it that way. But so this film kind of followed in the footsteps of that one, and was looking at the more kind of the underbelly of some of the ideas that I've previously been kind of lauded, I guess, in some way. I spiraled off and I can't remember how
I don't know. I mean, other works have had Cornelius Cardew,
yes.
And the great, late and undervalued, I think, Robert Ashley,
Yes.
who was a fantastic composer. And if you've never heard Robert Ashley, you should go and listen to some Robert Ashley now.
He's amazing. You can see on YouTube a lot of his stuff. He kind of coined the genre of American video opera, and he made these kind of madcap, I don't even know what the adjective is, sort of disco. He wears like a sequin suit and dark glasses, and his work is all about the musicality of everyday speech. And he devises operas that are sort of made from that are all about talk and speech, and that are sort of made from stories that he encounters in the American landscape that are kind of completely bonkers. So one of them is Private Lives, which is great, which you can see on YouTube. But yeah,
That's a favourite. And The Bar.
Yeah, the
Bar.
bar. Exactly.
Because he was married to the daughter of Dorothea Tanning.
Ah.
So he had to sort of link the surrealism. But back to your film, really, and at the beginning it's Karl-Heinz Stockhausen conducting.
Having a mad moment.
And he really is mad, isn't he?
He's nuts. That's actually the only piece of footage in the film that I have not got the rights for, because the image is owned by the Stockhausen estate, who actually were... the sound is owned by the Stockhausen estate, and they were very... they were happy for me to use it, but the images, it's a sort of obscure 1972 documentary about Stockhausen that nobody would ever find or whatever. So, but the image is owned by this big German broadcaster. So we sent them the producer sent them an email saying, this is an artist film, no budget, etc. Could we show 10 seconds or whatever of Stockhausen? And they said that would be £750,000.
Ching.
Delete. That's the story of that piece of footage.
But you used it anyway. What are you going to do?
If it showed on TV, maybe we'd have to take it out.
Yeah, so you mustn't, people of Milton Keynes, do not tell anybody that you have seen Karl-Heinz Stockhausen in a very 1972 sort of glam rock suit performing in Beatrice's film. Because I suppose, Roger, you don't need to get permission from container companies to film
no,
there.
but you do have to get permission from the Egyptian police. And I could tell a dreadful story about that.
Do.
Go on then.
Probably shouldn't, but well, just very briefly, I have two pictures in this exhibition, two black and white photographs, one quite large one, one small one. One of which, the small one, was made on the Panama Canal, and it features, amongst other things, the presence of a container ship. And the other one was made in Egypt on the Suez Canal. And in both places, the security is kind of, quite stringent, shall we say. And at a certain moment, in fact, the large picture was made quite late in the day, quite near the town of Port Said. And I wasn't sure that I'd done what I needed to do there. And I made the mistake of going back there the next day, thinking it was such an interesting place because of the way that this broken wall framed the ships as they went north up the canal. And it was at that moment when I went back there that my driver and a friend of his, who happily spoke a lot more English than I spoke Arabic, and myself were intercepted by the police, who said, at 9 o'clock this morning you were at the ferry point at Port Said. At 10:03 you were having a cup of coffee. At 10:17 you stopped at the memorial of the war. You then had lunch here, and now you're here again, and you were here yesterday. So just go away. So that's what we did. And in fact, my brother had called me back early because my mother was not well. But on the day I was supposed to leave, my driver got arrested, and all sorts of dreadful things happened. And he was accused of harbouring a European spy. So that's the anecdotal story of what happens sometimes, or has happened a few times.
More than once.
Well, not the spy story, but other things have happened. Yeah. But that takes the work into another direction.
Exactly.
Really, yeah, which is not really what it aims to do. And I think you slipped the word quietist in earlier, and I immediately thought, maybe he was referring to me at this moment.
Something about hardly ever a human presence, just traces. You go all the way to Sullenvo in Shetland, and you don't buy me a T-shirt. You brought back an image of a decaying container from this beautiful landscape that's been despoiled by the oil industry. But perhaps quietist was a slightly flippant, journalistic.
No, it's a reasonable word. It's okay. I think I immediately felt it land on me quite clearly.
Are you guilty about something?
Not at all. And just so then you kind of mull it over and think, well, how what is the process here? Listening to other people talking about how they work, and I think, actually, I work in a very different way. I work in quite a lonely way. When I was informed by Anthony that I was on the shortlist, we were all 40 odd of us were invited to submit images and some writing about our work, and then Adrian and his pals reduced us down to 4. And when Anthony wrote to me and said that I was on the shortlist, I was on an appalling island in the Pacific Ocean, which is the smallest Commonwealth country, feeling rather sorry for myself, but thinking, well, here I am again, spending time alone, making a particular kind of photograph of decaying containers that say Liverpool, Dublin and Rotterdam on them, and somebody's leaned a broom in front of it, and there's some tractor marks on the sand in front, and so on. And that's what I tend to do, is to go and work in places that might sound romantic, whether it's Shetland or Nauru, which is where I was, the smallest Commonwealth country, but then to find things that are so ordinary, so uneventful, but which perhaps have the capacity to make a new thing, which is a photograph. It's not simply a representation of what was there. It is in itself a new object, whether it's a silver gelatin print or something that's made through digital means, to make something which is the sum of the parts of what was in front of it, but becomes something else, something that speaks of space, of decay, of time, of industry, of activity, of human presence.
Globalization. And you do need the titles, really.
Do you?
I think you do with your work, because you need a sense of place, because in a way they are showing it in a slightly Ballardian sense, that the world is sort of homogenized in certain ways, and that these are these... you photograph, as far as I can see it, a sort of liminal space sometimes, but which is, and when you read the title, it drags in everything you know or don't know about Cairo or about South Africa, or that they're very rich in that way, and that the title really helps.
Yeah, I once made a book where all I did was, there are 80 photographs, and the title is the local title. So it wouldn't be Cairo, it would be Georgetown, or it would be, I don't know, Bagamoyo. Where's Bagamoyo? But if you know where it is, you can locate
like Midsummer Avenue or something, or Boulevard, whatever it is. Yeah.
But I quite like the idea that there is a place name, but it doesn't help you. But maybe you're right. Maybe people do need to locate things. In fact, that very picture, Bagamoyo, which was in an exhibition I did once upon a time, and this woman came to me at the opening. She said, "I've just been on honeymoon in Jamaica, and that picture was made in Jamaica." Well, Bagamoyo's in Tanzania. But I said, well, if you want it to be in Jamaica, that's fine with me, because you have to locate it within your own frame of reference. And it could just as easily be anywhere in the kind of equatorial zones of the world, if it's palm trees and a few crumbling bits of building.
Yeah.
Jamaica's as good as Tanzania. So obviously they're made in specific places, but I would like them to have a broader, more general identity.
But it means that what you actually see in the image is a sort of trap, and that there's all sorts of other things that are going on. It's what you don't see or even that you don't title. You know, it's all the stuff that leads you to be there and nearly get arrested, or it's all those things that lead you to that place that are somehow embedded in the image in some.
Well, they are for me because I'm the one who made the journey. But I can only assume that they are not for everybody else apart from me, and therefore they have to engage with them firstly as things that are there in front of them. They're not just things that allow you to sort of imagine yourself in Egypt. They are physically there, and they are adjacent to each other, something from America, something from Egypt. And that's the first experience, is that you have a primary experience, which is the work.
Sure.
But the work itself also has this reference to somewhere else in the past, whether it's last week or 10 years ago.
Yeah, or the time between pressing the shutter and the shutter then closing again.
And then all the stuff that goes on after that, before you reach a point where you stick something on a wall in a gallery, which is quite a lot.
Exactly,
quite a lot of work.
Exactly. And one of the things that led you all to be here, really, out of that 40 that was reduced to 4, is that every one of you has a complete formal precision about what you make. There's something very precise about it. And in Siobhán's work, for example, every little bit is considered, whether it's the way something is connected invisibly to an electric socket somewhere that you can't see, the way that some a kind of bit of sheathing will cross the floor, the way that, you know, every bit seems considered.
I know, it's almost something I think is a bit of an illness, actually, in a way. And it's and I know exactly the precise point when I acquired this illness. And I was on, I think it was second year on my BA, and there was a woman there called Deanna Petherbridge, who was one of the tutors. Do you know Deanna?
I do, and she wrote a very huge book about
and she's
drawing.
really into drawing, and she does it with this like 6-inch ruler, and it's all really totally precise. And I made this sculpture that had, at that time, I wasn't using posi-drive screws. They were the screws that just have the slot, you know.
Like wood screws.
Yeah, just regular old wood screws. And I put this thing together, and it was fairly well made. But then she said, Hapaska, the screws are a very visible part of this work. Is it your intention that all the slots should be in different directions, you know? And I thought, what the hell is she talking about? And I looked at it again, and I thought, oh shit. Oh, I felt like such a loser because it was something that had escaped my attention, that I hadn't actually considered this. And from that point on, it's just like, it's like a disease. It's like, because I kind of think, well, if it's not your intention to have it that way, then make it very obvious what your intention is. And I rarely ever leave anything to accident, because it's again, for me, it would be seen as me not considering what I'd done properly, you know, if there's an accident. I mean, I have sometimes left a few things to accident when I've only made 2 wax figures, and I was using a stuff called alginate to cast. I was making an inquisitor, and I was casting this guy's hand, and he's actually a surgeon, the guy, and he must have for a split second just sort of moved his hand slightly. So I ended up with a cast with double fingers. And the guy went home, and I hadn't looked at the cast properly yet. And when I turned it into this 3D thing, I looked at it and I thought, oh God, I'm gonna have to get Hugh back into the studio. And then I thought, you know what? Sometimes actually accidents are okay, and you can learn to live with them, because what was really funny then was everyone would say, so Siobhán, the additional fingers on the hand, what is the meaning behind this? And I go, the guy moved his hand, you know, that was it, you know. And it was the same in that film that I was saying that I made. The woman that I had, who was there was only 2 characters, well 3, and the woman actually the week before we were due to film, she actually tripped over and sprained her ankle. And she came to the set with a walking stick, and when we did the first take, you know, she put the stick down and she was really struggling. You could see her really hobbling. And I said, you know what, Gina, just use your stick, it's fine. So we went through the film with the stick, and then of course, when it got to the point where people were able to view this, I had the same question. So, Siobhán, the stick, what is the inherent meaning of it? And I go, well, she sprained her ankle, that's it, you know, so I don't know.
Some artists turn that to their advantage. There's a friend of mine was building one of these igloos of Mario Merris, which is glass and steel bolted together. And they just finished building it, and they stepped back, and 2 of the sheets of glass to make this glass igloo collapsed in and smashed. And they rang up Mario Merz and said, Mario, I don't know what do we do now? We've broken it, and we can't get in there because all the glass is inside the igloo, and what do we do? He said, oh, you just retitle it. Igloo with thunderstorm.
I mean, I think because I control everything so heavily, I mean, everything is totally controlled. When I make those twin wall pieces, I mean, for me, it's really great fun because those 2-dimensional things, these flat things.
These are the pieces. There's the one on the back wall.
They're basically, it's just a regular building material, and it's divided up with these 10mm channels. And I fill them up with carbonized olive and white marble, and well, that's basically it. And for some reason, I allow more accidents to happen and more spontaneous sort of decisions to be made, or sometimes totally unconscious decisions as well. And it's a completely different way of working for me, and I find them almost like an escape valve. There's something really fun about doing it, but on the other hand, I just couldn't live with lots of accidents. I'd need to go and see a counsellor. It's just too much.
So it's quite fascinating for me to hear, because accident is such a key part of the way that I work, and kind of the play between control and accident. And I'm thinking about like being alone versus being with people. I think accident is one of the ways for me, or like building that into my method is one of the ways that I'm not alone, that I'm absolved of responsibility a bit.
I know, but yours is really fluid. You see that a lot of the materials that I use, they're obscure, and I have to kind of know in advance, you know, where I need to buy them, how to actually use them. And I can spend, I never actually show drawings, but I can spend absolutely hours technically working out how something is going to be constructed, because I can't
So when you make,
do that.
let's say, this piece with the scaffolding and the wood and so on, do you have a clear idea of all aspects of that work at the beginning, or does it evolve through the actual experience of making it?
I have an overall, I normally have a very fixed overall view of what I want the thing to accomplish in the end, and there are changes. Yeah. I mean, it was the same even when making a film. I didn't have a storyboard, and I didn't realise that I would need one, because I thought I'd be able to explain this to the guy, and he said, you're off your trolley, go back into a storyboard.
Take this light and stick it up your bottom.
Yeah, that kind of thing,
Go and wait on Hampstead Heath at 3 in the morning.
Exactly, yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah, and it's because I always know exactly what it is, so... yeah, I mean, I just, it's really, I do a lot of drawings just to work out the technical aspects of it. And sometimes things change because you realise that it's not going to be technically feasible to do it one way. So there's change in that sense. But, well, the other thing is that when I do those when I work with hard elements like steel or whatever, but when I work with clay, say, for instance, to make some of the fiberglass objects that I used to make then, there's a lot more room for these lovely accidents to happen, and I can get my head around that a bit better.
Maya Deren used to talk about the controlled accident, which was referred to cinematography, what was staged and what was spontaneous in terms of what the camera captured. But I always think that's quite a nice way to think about work, like, or even a different, like not just about what happens about the camera, but the relationship between authorship or collective process or something like that. Yeah, nice phrase.
But then if you're a filmmaker, it's editing that.
That's where the violence comes
And
in.
yeah.
Screw it, I'm doing it this way.
Yeah. Do you, and which means that you ditch stuff and you lose stuff, which you can regret later. But of course, if you're working digitally, you can generally get it back again, unlike in the old days. And I mean, Jimmy, when you were doing your piece, did you have to redo stuff and
Were you going to say shit then?
No, I avoided that one. I will leave the scatological to you.
No, I just thought I heard it. Well, Dan came. My friend, I keep talking about Dan, but this is how I did it. I phoned him up and said, "Well, do you want to come down? I need to make this thing." And he said, "I would come down on a Friday." And he was supposed to be there at 10 o'clock in the evening, and he got there about like midnight. You know, as you do, yeah. And we had some wine, and then I had a shot list. But it was so weird for me because like I said, I scripted it all. And I wrote it onto big brown paper so that he was sitting here, and I put it up behind his head so he'd kind of read it, but he had masks on, so you couldn't really see.
So it's like an auto cue?
Yeah, it's like an auto cue. I said, right, we've done that bit, we'll do all the boring stuff first, then we'll do all the messy bit afterwards, and then we'll do some other stuff. And so it was just a case of going through it all, but all of this sort of action, we filmed it all over that weekend. But then it sounded awful because I just had my, I've never used proper. I wouldn't know where to start with something like this. Like it's always been like this is the I use my iPhone now to film with. It's always been whatever I've got kind of handy.
So was all that filmed on an iPhone?
Yeah, it was all filmed on here on a bit of blue tack on it. I wish I had photographs on a stepladder with a blue tack on it, and it was just. And then of course, when you edit, because I mean, sorry.
Apps. Do you just film it straight? Or do you
straight. I go onto. No. I just go. I put it onto my computer and then I export it to make it smaller, so it's easier to edit. Because if you're using bigger files, I've always used a hacked, a copied version of Final Cut Pro. I don't. It's all. I probably shouldn't say that either, but it's like it's easier for me to work with smaller files because it takes less long to render. If anybody knows about editing.
Yeah.
And if you want to see, you want to imagine what something might look like, you try and mess around with it. I mean, I've got no idea about After Effects or that kind of stuff. It's just moving images this way, blurring them, making them darker and lighter. It's all just you just sit there with your headphones in, with the sound, and just go for it, and then you come out the other end. It's really like that with my work. It has been up until this point when I had to go and re-record all this voiceover with Dan in his kitchen in Stoke-on-Trent. But I felt like I was kind of, like Roger, you travel all over the place and it's amazing. I'm just like in my studio.
Stoke-on-Trent, yeah.
But I was going to Stoke-on-Trent. I was so excited, I got my laptop out of all the other businessmen on the.
You thought about Arnold Bennett.
I was highlighting bits. I didn't even need to highlight anything.
But you spent all those days that we were here last week
just up on the bloody ladder, yeah.
Stacking up tellies.
Yeah,
and I'd come in one day and you said, well, got this. You have one working the first day I came in. And then sometime on the day of the opening, you said, well, I've got 24 going now. We might have to take the other 22.
Yeah, just get rid of them. Yeah.
But so, I mean, there's a lot of last minute stuff going on. And then at a certain point, Claire said, well, I said, Jimmy's thing's looking all right. She said, yeah, but the sound's not there. It's like 3:30 on the opening day.
No, it actually, it was.
But you haven't talked at all about the multiple monitor aspect.
I've projected. I think the real reason is the very first show I had in a gallery called 17 in the basement.
I saw it.
Was I used monitors, and before this I was using an old Fuji camera, a digital camera with a video function, so you click the button around to it and I'd film on that, and it would just be, it would look so pixelated when you blew this thing up that it just wouldn't work projected, so it had to work on monitors. And I used, I think, six monitors before at 17, and then I had another show and I used 8, but this time I got 44. So it's like, is this going to work or not? Again, it's part of the risk. I thought, I'll just see if I can get hold of as many as, make it a big old kind of, thing when you go in the door, which I think it does look like that. I mean, in terms of the
like
configuration.
You've got high-tech guys in a back room kind of monitoring it all the time.
It gets really hot in there, and I've got no idea. I'm actually surprised because this electricity bill, I'm really, like, Anthony's over there. It's going to be killer, and it's not, and it is my fault, and I feel really, I'm sorry.
And working this way, is that because you like this sort of, it's like somebody, you know, you could make a great show just with some sheets of paper and a pencil, but and this idea of
it's funny you say that.
Low, is that expediency because of finance, being a young artist?
It was, yeah. At the very beginning, it was like that, and it's kind of stuck. So, you know, this sort of precision. I mean, I guess that's why the show works. I mean, there is that in there, I think, but it doesn't. Not that it doesn't interest me. I'd love to be able to use, you know, better gear, but I think it would. Now I'm stuck. I think I'm going to keep it like this. I'm going to carry on working like this, and it gets hard. Yeah, it gets difficult sometimes. Yeah. But you don't. It's like, you know, it's like I don't want to go on like this whole sort of, you know, when you talk about music. I was talking to somebody earlier about comparing the two. You know, you're making artwork and then making music, but. You know, people that play, the old bluesmen that just play like sort of two strings, you know, and get the right sound, they've got the right kind of ideas, and can kind of like put it off just as well as, like, you know, somebody who's got loads of money and spent post production. It just sounds, just doesn't work. And I think there must be a parallel, you know. And I don't. It's more of a challenge for me. I mean, it's not the best way for the, you know. To proceed, but it's a lot more interesting, I think, you know.
You use what you've got and what you can
do. I think so, but you could, I mean, I've got friends that could, if I say I really want to use that HD camera, I really want to, you know, get hold of some of these interesting new materials to work with, but you kind of just, you get used to it, you know.
I heard you were going to try and film with drones next time.
Oh God, yeah, don't
go there.
No, I'll tell you about the Steadicam. That was sort of referenced in the text that somebody wrote for this show about this makeshift Steadicam that I did make but I just gaffer taped loads of bamboo sticks together. I just wanted to see what it looked like. I think that's the thing. Gaffer taped about 15 bamboo sticks together. It was about from almost from here to where the gallery is. Big, and put my camera at the top, and then I went for a drive around Peckham with it coming out the sunroof. So I was filming down, and it was like a sort of series of self-portraits like that.
Google Street View.
Like that, but it was. I had to do a U-turn where the bridge is quite low. It's like I got loads of people to come and wave, like people coming to wave at me. But it was just to see what it would look like, and because it was quite fun and it's ridiculous. I'm like, you know, yeah. Why would you do that? I just want to see what it you know, how it's going to look. I think, and that's the start.
Isn't that an urge for most artists?
Well,
I want to see what it looks like.
I think so.
No one else is going to show it to me, so I want to make it happen myself.
Yeah, I think that's right.
You're making the work that you want to see.
I was going to say that's exactly what. That was one of the things I was thinking on the train up today. Like, say that. But anyway, sorry, Roger.
There's been no conferring.
Just make the work. Just make the work you want to see. That was going through my head like crazy.
But we're all aware of other people whose work is kind of important to us as well, because that's part of where it's coming from. Yeah. Is knowing what the territory is and how you can, you know, take a little bit of this and take a little bit of that. I mean, I was looking at Constable this morning and looking at what he took from Rubens, for instance.
Was that at the V&A show?
Yeah. And there's an awful lot of that sort of, or Van Ruysdael. And I think we're the same, you know, we kind of know where our different interests lie, and it's not just limited to art. It'll be from music, from literature, from all different parts of our experiences that then formulate something that allows us to proceed, I guess.
You've got to, and you say it's a lonely pursuit to be a photographer, the way you work, and but you have got all the other artists around you, the ones that you look at. You know, it's that famous Philip Guston thing. You know, where he said that I go into my studio every night and all those other painters are in the studio. You know? And if I keep painting, one by one they get bored and leave the room, and until I'm just left there painting. And if it's going really well, I disappear too.
Ghosts.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Who are your ghosts? Who are your? Well, maybe I better not ask that. But
I don't know. I mean, I just feel really alone all the time, you know, with it. No, I really do. I really do. I don't know. I just, I never really have direct references for anything, really. I don't know. Maybe that's why it sort of looks sometimes like it's come from another planet. Sometimes it's a bit weird.
But it doesn't. I've never thought of your work really as being willfully. I'm going to be a bit weird.
No, I don't do it
At
deliberately.
all, no.
It just happens.
And worrying about where
Well,
the
it's
posi
shaking.
drive screw, you know,
Yeah, no.
and everything. But
I know. I guess like you know, when you wake up one morning and you decide that you want to make a forest of olive trees, hang them horizontally, and attach large vibrating motors to them, you know, that presents, you know, problems of, you know, why am I doing this? And it's that I really cannot get this concept out of my head, and I can see it, and I need to do it to see how it's going to function. And then, of course, I mean, I don't think you ever have the whole picture of a piece of art. You know, I might say I have it complete in my head, and that's true visually, but its overall meaning and its completion only happens once it's actually there in reality in the world. And then what totally completes it is the dialogue that other people bring to it, you know, all the other stuff that revolves around it. And I think that for me is the magic part of it. You know, it's not just the joy and the pleasure I got out of seeing something manifest, but it's this other afterlife that it has with people, how they observe it, how they, you know, take it on board. So,
because nobody owns all the meanings of their work.
No.
You can't.
No.
That's impossible.
No. And you have to just really completely let go of that also, because, I mean, it was going back to that precision thing again. I mean, I think in a very infantile way, I thought if I could control something completely, that it would control the way people sort of viewed it, almost in a way that it would hone in, my intentions would be closer to the way that they would read it. And it doesn't really work like that, you know. It's just a springboard, and you have to leave it completely open.
Exactly.
And
Going around last week over in the gallery, people were getting mesmerised just watching these things turn. And someone turned towards me and said, I'm getting travel sick looking at this. But it had this certain slowness and turning and moving, and that it becomes this, it's like, what the hell am I looking at, really?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've always got very, very fixed ideas of what it's about. You know, and sometimes when you try and describe it to someone else, you can see them going, well, I would have never thought that in a million years. And I go, you know, that's fine. That's okay.
Don't tell me.
That's
I've got my
okay.
own.
That's okay. So,
I think the best pieces of work for me are the ones that don't look anything like I intended them to.
yeah.
And in fact, they never really do. Like, if you think of a production process in film as kind of designing to some extent what's gonna happen, it never is the thing that I think it will be. But then I feel relieved about that, because if it was exactly as you imagined it, there'd be no friction.
Sort of dead on arrival.
Yeah. I have a picture in there which is of a shadow of a bridge across a rather deserted street. And I think I probably used up 2 rolls of film photographing the bridge. And I took one picture down there and then carried on photographing this bridge again. And it's this one.
Yeah.
This is the one, you know. And I didn't think anything of it at the time, but looking this way enabled me to do something that way.
Yeah. But it's not Cartier-Bresson's decisive moment, I presume.
No, it's
all.
completely indecisive all the time.
Yeah.
And it's many moments.
Yeah. Which is great, isn't it? That can, it shows that you're a live person. You're not a camera, you know. You are somehow responding to the situation in ways that...
Yeah, I think, you know, I mean, probably all of us in our different ways, we have to prefigure what it is we think we're going to make. Whether at the stage of using your smashed up iPhone, you know, with all the broken glass on the front, which I really like.
It's broken, it's not special, it's just broken.
Yeah, it's broken. But it's nice, I like that. It's a kind of special object, you know. But there's this act of trying to prefigure what it is that you're going to make. In my case, it's looking at things that are in 3 or 4 dimensions in colour, where activity, whether it's the activity of people or vehicles or just weather, is taking place, and trying to prefigure some kind of tonal still image from within that set of circumstances. And that, you can only do it up to a certain point, but because you have a certain familiarity with how certain actions in relation to techniques will create particular kinds of results.
And you've got to be alert and alive, but also not monitoring yourself so much that you don't allow the world in somehow.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's right.
Yeah. And in this film here, it's the first part of a projected trilogy. Am I right?
There's more to come.
There's more to come.
How many more?
So presumably you don't know quite where that's going to go yet. That's
yeah. So this part of the film is like a part of the project. It's like a prologue, I guess, but it's a project that orientates around this. The departure point is this book. Sorry, excuse the term.
Can somebody just say once? That's too much. It kills me.
This book by American modernist author called William Gaddis. It was written in 1975. Yes. It's called J.R. and it's the story of this child capitalist who amasses this kind of virtual empire that destroys the lives of everyone who comes into contact with it, and it's all done kind of in cahoots with a slightly unwitting kind of resident modernist composer in this school. So it's kind of the whole, in general, the project's looking at like abstraction in music and finance and their possible entanglement. And the project uses the book, it's kind of like trying to think about what adaptation, like an expanded idea of adaptation. So it's not a fictional retelling of this story, but it's using a character and plot and certain scenes to set up production parameters that then do stuff that I can't control. So there's another scene in the book that I'm really interested in for the next piece, in which the composer takes a group of 11-year-olds to a trading floor, and in a financial institution, and the head of this bank or financial institution describes the kind of inner workings of the company as if it was a democracy. So I'm working with a composer and a financial institution and some 11-year-olds, and not really controlling much more than that, actually. So yeah, I don't know how many parts it will be.
Few. Just make sure those posi drive screws are in the right direction. I think we should open it up to the audience now. I'm sure you have questions. And I don't know if there's a roving mic, or are we just doing it? We don't. Ooh, no roving mic. Ooh. Okay, so if anyone has it, please just stick your hand up. No one will bite, so feel free. Oh, go on. There's one.
Well, I work totally on my own, and I think it's kind of like you were saying, you know, that what you do ends up being within the parameters of what you're capable of, and I think the same thing applies to me, because I only have certain types of equipment in my studio that permit me to do certain things, and I think, well, I know what the results are. I know what I'm capable of, and the times when I have actually had enough money to have an assistant, it's driven me insane, because they don't do it as well as me. And I end up having to do what I wanted them to do myself, you know. So I just think, well, what's the bloody point, you know? And well, I think also because I grew up on my own totally, that I'm used to just being in a space on my own, and it's a bit noisy with someone else there. I don't mean, it's just something about them being there I find difficult. But on the other hand, I mean, one of the most beautiful aspects of when I made that one and only film was suddenly, you know, I had to speak to other people, I had to, you know, organise things, but that's a different thing. It's a different way of thinking, and that's fine. But in terms of making sculpture, I just like to be totally on my own because I can control it all. I sound like a dictator, some sort of like little fascist, but I'm not. I don't mean it that way. So
at one time, a lot of artists would be apologetic about having assistants, as if that was a sort of dirty secret that they had people to fabricate and do stuff.
I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I think if I can do it, it's almost out of some sort of respect also. I mean, I think there was a time I remember when, you know, artists of my generation, you know, they'd brag about, oh, I had something fabricated and it cost 15,000 or 300,000 or whatever like that, and I just thought, oh God, shut up, you know, it's just, is that necessary? It's not necessary, you know. And I think, I mean, you know, if it's something I really can't do, I'll get someone else to do it, you know. I know my parameters also, but if it's something that I can do, well, actually, even when I take on something that I'm not sure about, I learn so much in the process of trying to accomplish that it just adds to a whole pool of knowledge, and I think those things are really invaluable. I mean, it kind of really pisses me off that, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but basically, I think if you're going to make something as a 3D thing, you should have some understanding of how it's actually made. There's so many, you know, kids come out of art college and they're completely clueless, you know? And it's fine if you decide to farm it out, but at least have some sort of understanding of what the process is. So
it's fine if you don't just have a fantasy of farming it out, but you have the means to farm it out.
Or you genuinely need to,
yes.
you know.
Yeah.
But I don't genuinely need to, and often I don't have the means to, so I just get on with it, you know. But yeah, so that's it.
You know, the idea of the big shot artist farms everything out. Question over there to the right.
The four of you are the cream of the crop of the music art practice, and you don't particularly, I don't believe, have a connection with Milton Keynes, but the prize is very much rooted in Milton Keynes. So I have two questions really. One is whether being involved in this process has changed your perception of Milton Keynes as a place, and secondly, moving forward, whether you think your involvement may change the way you relate to us in years ahead.
There's a question.
I've never been to Milton Keynes until the show, so it's my first perception. I'm not sure I really had a kind of firmly entrenched perception of Milton Keynes beforehand.
Well, I mean, there's a great history, you know, to this gallery. It's an incredible history. But, I mean, to be completely honest, the only reason why I ever came to Milton Keynes before was actually to see shows at this space. And I think, well, I mean, I will have involvement in the future with whatever's going on. I think you've got something up your sleeve. I'm not sure what's happening. And there, for all of us, I think we're having artists from this area come to visit us in London. So there is this little sort of exchange thing going on. But I don't know any more than that.
The wrong time to, you know, when you try and think you've got the perfect time to interrupt, and then I just so fucked it up. I was going to say, we're going to show him Leighton Buzzard down the road, aren't we? Aren't we?
Stop before.
I just like
Stop before.
I'm just going to start making jokes now. I need to.
Did you invent that?
No. But I like the name Leighton Buzzard. I've never been to Milton Keynes myself, but I'll come back to see some shows.
I can't say anything. I'm from Welwyn Garden City.
I can't talk.
Well, you know, maybe I have a slightly different relationship to Milton Keynes in that when we were installing the exhibition last week, I, as a resident of Scotland, was staying here with friends. And it's not the first time I've been to visit them. So my, I don't know if my perception of Milton Keynes has changed. Perhaps it's broadened slightly. I'm still not sure which roundabout I'm on, as I'm driven either by my pals or by a taxi driver between a part of Milton Keynes that looks like proper England to me, Wolverton, with a nice Japanese restaurant in it, and the more Milton Keynesy bits of Milton Keynes, which seem to me to be hidden, domestic areas hidden behind areas of trees and so on, which I understand the reasons for it. But you know, just being here and dropping in here and working with it, actually I will come to it in a minute, but being driven around the city, it doesn't really change one's perception of it too much. But one of the things that I think I should say, and I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody here, is that the way that the people we've worked with here, the installation crew, and all of whom I know are artists. I mean, they handled my pictures like they're by Fra Angelico, you know, with 6 pairs of gloves on, and they're not breathing when they're carrying them in case they, you know. I mean, it's a fantastic, wonderful way to work with people and to get to know them a little bit. And so those kinds of experiences are the inevitable experiences of people in the, we're not the cream of the crop, we're just, you know, we're just the top milk for this week, which will go sour very quickly, I think. But, you know, those are the experiences you have when you are very focused on trying to get your screws all in the right direction, or your frames horizontal or whatever.
If I can just come back very quickly, the message behind my question was we are very, very keen to establish a whole range of new relationships with anybody and everybody. And if there are ways that you can individually find a route in to work more with us, then that will be a real additional plus for the city. On the question of roundabouts, the benchmark is don't feel bad about not knowing the way around until you've lived here for 6 months. Until that time, you have every excuse. Great to have you around.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I just say it's a joy every time I got out of the train station to be able to say to someone, I would like to go to Midsummer Boulevard. It's just gorgeous. I love that. Yeah, Midsummer Boulevard.
We don't have one of those in Glasgow,
no, we don't,
that's for sure.
Or could it
Question
be
in the
of
front.
summer?
Yeah, around the dinner table last night, somebody asked the question, what did they want the impact of art to be in their lives? And somebody said to communicate vitality and energy. Somebody said to give pleasure. And a third person, who I think was a professor of art at Boston University, I think, he said to be spiritually uplifting. So I wondered what each of you 4 or 5, even if you'd like to do that as well, Adrian, would say you would like the impact of your art to be.
Well, it can do all those things, can't it? You know, if you get lucky, you know.
I mean, I can't say what I want my work to do, because it feels sort of egotistical or something, but I could say what I like about art in general. What it does for me is that it's about expanding the way that I think about the world, essentially, like coming across the situation and seeing it from a different angle, or seeing it differently, or seeing it backwards or inside out. That's the most valuable thing to me, I think, about art and having art in my life.
Go on, Jimmy.
I really can't, because I've tried to memorise. I really can't. It's such a difficult, that's the, there's I'm going to sound like an accident. There's one quote that on YouTube, if you go onto www.youtube.com and then type in, there's an interview of Andrei Tarkovsky, who I very much admire. I don't know, I don't make work like him at all. I can't even touch him. But I've watched endless sort of interviews with him, but he's got the best definition. Well, I can't paraphrase. I can't remember exactly what it is, because it goes on for about half an hour or so, but it's so heavy by the end of it you feel like this guy is kind of he's not one of us, he's something special, and he's the kind of person that you need to ask that question to. Really, I mean that's it. I don't know. It's like I'm trying to think if there's a way of making people feel like sad and then happy at the same time. that, there's somewhere between that. I don't know. I can't. We need to get. Have we got enough? We need to drink more. Drink more. We need to drink more. I don't know.
I think it has to work differently for different people. If as probably me and the other 4 people sitting up here, that's probably what we think about most in our lives, is the problems of making work, the problems of failing to make work, which is a huge issue, I think, of wishing we were a bit better at it than we are. I'm speaking for myself now. So there's a huge need to be continuously engaging in the broader issues of what it is to produce things that, for want of a better noun, you have to call art. Mm. And I had a pretty formative experience when I was a student a long time ago. I went to this exhibition at the Institute of Contemporary Arts in London. I was at Chelsea School of Art at the time. It was 1969, a long time ago. And I went to this exhibition which was called When Attitudes Become Form. And I went and I thought, God, can't make much. I remember there was these photos on the floor called Photopath by a British artist called Victor Bergin. That was okay, I could deal with that. There's a few bits of rope here and there. There's, just the stuff you think, my God, is this, what, I don't know how to relate to this. What shall I do? I'm a postgraduate student. Shall I stay or shall I go? I thought, well, I'll stick around for a while and see what happens. And nothing much happened. I wandered around, thought, there's the rope again. There's the photos of the floor, on the floor, and so on and so on. And then about 2 months later, I was washing up in my miserable little flat. And I suddenly thought, something's just moved in my brain that relates to that experience in this exhibition, which is now much talked about and recreated in Venice last year. And so
faithfully recreated.
Yeah. And it was like a moment for me that told me that art doesn't have to work for you when you're standing in front of it. It can happen later. Or it can connect to another experience that might also be art, or it might be something else, that then sort of it doesn't make sense of it, it just shifts your perception of it slightly. So I think you have to play the long game.
I think I go along with pretty much what everybody has said, and there are critics, I can think of 1 or 2, who try to say this is art and that's not art. And art is what artists do, and artists have taught me, and the artists and their work have taught me everything I know about art. Not art historians, although I've listened to a lot. It's the artist's self that leads you, and or leads me certainly. And it is about seeing the world differently, and about how making connections differently, shaking oneself one out of habit, and so forth. And certainly, as being a member of the jury for this, that's true of all the four contestants, the 4 artists here. They shift the world a little bit. Some artists shift it a lot, and sometimes you don't realise that they've done it until much, much later. It isn't necessarily the ones with the biggest careers at that minute. Art can be insidious as well as spectacular. Anyway, I think we've got time probably for another question, if there is one. Yes?
There's a voicing film.
Yeah.
Is it Max Kaiser?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
With a slight kind of vocoder share effect, a vocoder placed on top.
I think that's what maybe not quite sure.
Who is this person?
Max Kaiser is a sort of bizarre rogue finance figure who has a show has 2 shows, one on Resonance and one on Russia Today.
Okay.
And it's a kind of diatribe again. He's a sort of capitalist, a banker, ex-banker, but it's a diatribe against the irregularities of and more. It's quite wild, and his wife is Stacey Herbert, who's in a sex scandal with Angus Deacon. It's quite juicy stuff. Yeah. He's good. Have a look.
You are on the couch, aren't you? We are on the couch here. Yeah. Was that Angus eaten before or after?
In the Have I Got News for You? It's a bit,
The coke-fueled
it was a treat
nights.
of lady, yeah. Yeah, it was a while ago. Anyway,
Yeah,
it's him.
Does he know?
I've listened to him since the very early resonance days.
Yeah.
So it's very familiar.
Yeah, he came and did a talk at the my gallery, the Laura Barker in London, and because as sort of an event related to the film, we did a talk where I got the other voice, who's the composer that I'm now again working with, cellist, to do a sort of 6 pieces of music that he felt were about abstraction in a musical sense, and then Max came to talk on abstraction in finance and what that might be, but he didn't really do that. I think the gallery world scared him, which we have only ourselves to answer for. And because he does this kind of stand-up rage thing that would have been really great. I think he got intimidated because of white walls, but I don't know, so he sort of read from an unpublished novel, which was quite good, but his stand-up rage is really, it's great.
And I think he's always done that better on radio, in fact, than on telly.
Yeah. I convinced him to be part of the film by eating about 40,000 Twiglets in the Groucho Club. At his request.
He was on a Twiglet high. Yeah. I once did a talk with Hans Ulrich Obrist at the London School of Economics, and Hans Ulrich, who's this Uber curator at the Serpentine, and there's a huge profile of him in the latest New Yorker. He said to me, "I hope they don't ask anything about economics. I don't understand money at all." Me neither. Any questions? I think we're done. I would love to thank the 4 artists here, both for the pleasure of this evening's conversation and for seeing their work in dark and dingy rooms while we were selecting them, and then again on the walls of the gallery here. And it's been an absolute pleasure for me, and I'd like to thank you all, and Milton Keynes Gallery for inviting me to share the talk. So, thank you very much.
Can you focus that one?